It has been almost 2 years since Sarada awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan, but even though the manga has completed over 18 chapters, she still hasn't used this power yet. Some people have already lost the hope in her character, not just for her Mangekyo unawareness, but also because she failed the promise that she made to herself back in chapter 69. Well, today we are gonna prove all these claims false and put the Uchiha crown back on Sarada's head by diving into different possibilities and mythologies just to understand the true power of her Mangekyo Sharingan. Like, what if I told you she already used her special ability on Sasuke in chapter 79, with this possibility solidifying even more in chapter 13, or the exact parallels of Sarada and her Mangekyo Sharingan, which have been derived from the Shinto and Hindu mythology. Not just that, there could also be a special seal that Sarada could theoretically use to obtain the power of the EMS. But for starters, let's begin with the prophecy that Momoshiki made about the people immune to omnipotence. So if you haven't subscribed yet, just do it right now, cause I can already see through my prescience that you will do it in the future. Even though the story of Naruto was a tale of epic proportions with massive world building and massive universal appeal, there is an aspect of the franchise which had made Kishimoto face a lot of criticism. As they say, the bigger the blockbuster, the greater the backlash. Naruto wasn't safe from it either, as some fans were upset from Kishimoto for not giving that much attention to his female characters. Almost no female in the story was given the same spotlight as the male characters, which only meant one of the two things. Either Kishimoto wasn't the best at writing female characters, which would be a disgrace on his legacy as a mangaka, or maybe he simply disliked the ideas of females under spotlight, and as we are living in 2024, this idea would make some people label him as a misogynist. But it all changed with the later chapters of Boruto Part 1 and 2 Blue Vortex, where you can get to see Aida, a female cyborg who possesses the strongest ability in the universe, and if that wasn't enough, the daughter of Naruto, Himawari, was turned into a human Biju. Her existence has now fused with Kurama, one of the strongest creatures in the story, but the point that I found really interesting in Kishimoto's writing is the way he crafted a strange dynamic between two important female characters, Sarada and Sumire, who once shared a good alliance and wanted to save their friend Boruto together, are now against each other after a strong realization. They both are in love with Boruto, but only one can claim his heart. It's more disheartening for Sarada, cause the love that she shared for her lifelong friend completely destroyed her ancestral cycle of awakening the Mangekyo Eye. While all the previous users had to walk an emotional journey, often tied to loss or pain, Sarada broke this norm, since her Mangekyo awakening originates from profound love, determination, and a sense of justice. But is she even aware of this power? We have seen her doing research on the Mangekyo Sharingan, and even Sasuke took the name of this dojutsu when he saw it in Sarada's eyes. So could it be that the writers made her ignore the words of her father when she was overwhelmed, which was potentially the biggest letdown of the story? Well, I will get there soon, but let's first talk about what Momoshiki had predicted about Sarada and Sumire in chapter 80 and how that prediction is now coming true. Is the ones immune from omnipotence who suffer the most? Initially, this statement felt like the struggle that Sarada would have to go through in proving Boruto innocent. The internet was flooded with theories like Sarada going rogue to find Boruto, living up to Itachi's name, and even becoming the next Sasuke. The prediction felt like a reflection of a philosophical concept known as Ubermensch, which embraces suffering as a necessary force for the sake of transformation. This meant her post-omnipotence journey should have evolved her into a much stronger and better written character. But unfortunately, none of that happened. Instead, we got to see a weird love triangle between her and Sumire, and that's totally not how she's going to raise to the level of Boruto and Kawaki. Not gonna lie, this conflict with a friend over someone you love doesn't seem like something that Momoshiki would warn about. But if you pay some attention, this warning of the Otsutsuki perfectly sets up the scene for Sarada's Mangekyo powers. The reason being the thing that was emphasized by Momoshiki, suffering. A feeling that turns the survivors of omnipotence into the most unfortunate people to ever exist. We know the Uchiha clan had been suffering from the very beginning, and trauma is a necessary part of their ocular awakening. But in case of Sarada, who was born in an era where such conflicts have ceased to exist, it was harder for someone like her to find the specific triggers which are required for activating her Mangekyo Sharingan. But with this prediction of Momoshiki about the suffering that she is destined to witness, it seems like the Uchiha curse hasn't fully left her, meaning that she would also embrace trauma in creating formidable techniques. No matter she hasn't came around something that traumatic yet, but the word of Momoshiki confirms that Sarada's fate is still affected by the ancestral curse of going through trauma, if not hatred. And the best part is that all the special abilities of the Mangekyo users are rooted in the way they receive their unique trauma. Obito, for example, uses Kamui, a space-time ninjutsu that allows him to teleport objects and himself to a separate dimension. Needless to say, the boulder that crushed Obito didn't just break his body, but also symbolized his detachment from reality, which is embodied by the phasing ability of Kamui. The dimension-shifting nature of this technique serves as a metaphor to his detachment from the physical plane and the people around him. A few more examples would be Itachi's Amaterasu, a symbol of the consuming destruction that he unleashed when he massacred the Uchiha clan to prevent a coup, an act that literally burned everything that he loved. Or let's take the Koto Amatsuki of Shisui, a genjutsu that can subtly manipulate a person's actions without their awareness. It reflected his wish to resolve conflicts without direct confrontation by silently guiding others towards the path of peace that he could never fully achieve. So the special powers of Sarada's Mangekyo could be a reflection of her personal trauma and suffering, which made her awaken the dojutsu at first place. As I said in the beginning of the video, she could have already used her genjutsu on Sasuke, but before we get there, let's figure out the name of her special power, which is hidden within some Buddhist mythology. So the name of Sarada's next ability, in my opinion, is going to be Benzaiten. It could be one of the two abilities that she's about to unlock, and there's a whole iceberg to how that's the best possible name to her unique power, with hints stemming from Hindu, Buddhist and Shinto mythology. So let's first explore what type of ability could this technique grant Sarada. When you look back at the connection of the previous Mangekyo users with trauma, you will notice a pattern where their abilities reflected the type of events that they were going through. But what makes Sarada's case unique is that no one in her ancestry had ever witnessed such circumstances in which the divine powers of an Otsutsuki god were involved. The opponents that she's facing are just sentient entities who came to life as a result of Shibai's Shinjutsu. And even the case of her innocent friend turning into a criminal was an outcome of a similar divine ability. This simply means that her powers could be unique to her circumstances, as the Mangekyo reflects the heart and she is desperately in need of getting stronger. So the power of Benzaiten, in my opinion, which best suits Sarada and her situation, could be a time-related ability. Notice the pattern on her Mangekyo. It resembles a clock, and I don't think this detail was intentional. Sarada's special power could manipulate time in order to give her an edge over all the people who are using Shibai's abilities to their advantage. The main purpose of the time power would be to prevent Boruto's life from going worse, something that led to her awakening at first place. And the way I believe she could do that is completely mind-blowing, so make sure to hit that sub button if you like this possibility. A thing that I'm sure many of you must have noticed in the story is the absence of Momoshiki. Neither Aida nor Koji could use their Shinjutsu to trace him, and even Boruto is unaware of his circumstances. But do you think the entity who led the first part of the story with a divine prophecy would step back from the plot so easily? What if he is still taking over Boruto frequently after stopping time, with nobody being able to catch his actions? Back in chapter 73, when Momoshiki showed his glimpse to Kawaki, Sasuke could feel his presence, and then he had a flashback of the first time when he appeared. It seems like even though Sasuke was motionless during the Otsutsuki's first emergence, he could still see his actions and conversation with Boruto thanks to his Rinnegan. And this is why I believe Sarada could be the next person to sense and trace Momoshiki, while Sasuke's Rinnegan gave him an edge over the Otsutsuki, which was the main reason he lost it as well. Sarada's way of tracking Momoshiki could be through her special Benzaiten ability, which deals with stopping time. So you must be wondering why I believe Momoshiki might be operating behind the scenes after freezing time and taking control of Boruto's body. Well, there were many instances in the story which went unexplained, like the disappearance of the Ten-Tails body, which led to the birth of the Shinjus. We know it requires someone to use the soul thorn in a specific way for them to emerge, but when they first awakened, we did not see anything like that. So what if it was Momoshiki all the time who stopped time to create these Shinjus in order to make Boruto's life hell? The worst part is that we would never be able to tell if he participates in such malicious activities or not, all thanks to his power to control time, which allows him to escape prescience as well as clairvoyance. So the best way for the writers to give Sarada a more prominent role must be to grant her the Omni ability which could spot and stop Momoshiki. She could even use this power against the other enemies, but she would need to get extra cautious as the overuse of the Mangekyo Sharingan can even make her go blind. Now that we are done with the massive role and power of this ability in uplifting the character of Sarada, let's now explore some intangible evidence which confirms Benzaiten as the first Mangekyo power of Sarada. So you must be familiar with Kawaki's Daikokuten power, which is manifested through the Kokugan. Well, the thing about this dojutsu is that it mirrors Sarada's Mangekyo, as both of them are inspired from the sun, with the Mangekyo shown illuminating its surroundings, while the Kokugan is a symbol of absorption, a metaphor of darkness which takes away the light. But the symbolism is actually rooted deeper than that, since Daikokuten was among the 7 lucky gods of the Japanese folklore, each symbolizing different forms of fortune. The interesting part is that Benzaiten is also a part of this group. And what strengthens the possibility of this name to be the next Mangekyo power of Sarada is the fact that 3 of these 7 deities have Hindu origin, which includes both Benzaiten and Daikokuten. While Daikokuten is inspired by Mahakala, a form of Shiva from Hinduism, Benzaiten is derived from the goddess Saraswati, who is also known as Sarada in Sanskrit. She is often depicted in an avatar with 8 arms, which is the same as the number of spikes in Sarada's Mangekyo. Now, to make things even crazier, this deity is often identified as Ichikishima Hime in the Japanese folklore, as the practice of merging different entities from different traditions with each other. This version of Benzaiten is identified as one of the 3 daughters of Amaterasu in Shinto mythology. Now, if we extend this analogy to Sarada, it makes a strong case for her Mangekyo ability to be named after Benzaiten, especially since the Mangekyo power of her father was Amaterasu. Now that we are done with the name of her special power, let's move on to how she could have already used her genjutsu on Sasuke. I'm sure you must have heard theories about Sarada using some spell on Sasuke which made him change his mind on Boruto. While there's a chance for this possibility to come true, most people advocate the idea of Sasuke trusting Sarada solely because of the Mangekyo awakening, since the emotion required to trigger this power can't be faked. But after reading these 2 chapters again, something caught my eye that I feel like is an indicator of Sarada using her hidden ability. First and foremost, the Sharingan and the Mangekyo share opposite designs, with one being a moon and the other being a sun. When the time skip wasn't released, there were theories of Sarada going all out on Aida to make her undo the omnipotence spell. But Two Blue Vortex debunked all such theories, as there is no apparent rivalry or grudges between the 2 people. But even though they don't share a personal conflict, their abilities could definitely have one. If you take a look at Sasuke when he saw Aida for the first time, he wasn't captivated by her charm, not even a little bit. While you could say that it was his own resilience, the twist comes when you realize the charm and the memory switch are the applications of the same ability, the omnipotence. I believe Sarada's Mangekyo ability could have reduced the empathetic effects of the divine spell on Sasuke. This means his feelings neutralized and he was able to act rationally without falling prey to the effects of omnipotence. And all of that happened after he looked into the Mangekyo eyes of Sarada. Considering how this dojutsu is known to reflect the heart, it may have manifested the perfect ability which has fulfilled the desire of Sarada. And looking at chapter 13, where Kashin Koji talked about an alternate future where both Boruto and Sarada die, it seems like the sun-shaped Mangekyo Sharingan actually changed the fate of Boruto. The contrast here is pretty symbolic. While the moon eye can drastically alter the course of history by messing with the memories of people, the sun eye would just shed its light to illuminate a path in the middle of the darkness which was brought in by its counterpart. In chapter 75, it was unveiled that all the jutsus, be it the ocular powers or anything else, are collectively a watered down version of the Shinjutsus. So it's just a thought, but I feel like the heart reflection tendency of the Mangekyo comes directly from omnipotence, explaining how Sarada was able to counter the effects of the spell. There's even a darker variant of this theory, and for those of you who are caught up with the second season of Squid Game, it would remind you of a strange character who played an airy role. By the way, you can use my code Kashi at Gamsco to get a $5 discount at their services, through which you can obtain a Netflix subscription at a very cheap price. The links will be in the description, and now let's move on to the theory. So the ability of Sarada that she used to cleanse the soul of Sasuke could have been derived from the shamans. Basically, they are faith healers or spiritual practitioners in various cultures around the world, particularly found in indigenous and tribal societies. Those who practice shamanism commune with the spiritual realms through altered states of consciousness in order to provide healing or receive guidance. Coincidentally, the color combination worn by Sarada is kinda similar to these shamans, and since the omnipotence is a power which has its origins in the spiritual realm, I believe the role of Sarada as a shaman perfectly suits the divine plot of the story. She could have illuminated Sasuke by cleansing his soul back in chapter 80, and looking at how all of it connects so well, I think Kishimoto will succeed at making Sarada one of the best female characters. Now let's talk about the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. As of now, we don't have any hint for how this Dojutsu evolution would take place. However, there is a possibility for the new technology in Konoha playing a huge role in making Sarada immune from the side effects of the Mangekyo. There have been theories of her utilizing the Byakugo seal to prevent herself from going blind by overusing the Mangekyo eye. But I have an even better idea to cure her blindness using a new type of seal. So what if Sarada gets the Hashirama cells tattooed on her body like a seal, similar to the Kama, and whenever she would energize the Mangekyo, the healing effects of the seal could prevent her from going blind, granting her the advantage of the EMS without actually undergoing the transplant process. An idea like this could work out well, considering how modern science and technology has become a vital part of the story. Reconstructing the DNA of an Uchiha member through a third-party seal in order to save them from succumbing to blindness is something that I'm looking forward to. For more amazing thoughts and theories, you can check out these videos right now. I will see you next time.